country has seen a number of crimes, corruption cases going unresolved, and there is pressure on the Hawks, the National Prosecuting Authority, to bring to book those implicated in matters such as state capture, for example. And we also have the complete overhaul of the criminal justice system that we have been promised by the President. Concerns around the efficacy of the parole system are among the issues that we are going to tackle here because it's been questioned. Joining me now is the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, Ronald Lamola, to tackle some of these burning issues. Minister, thank you very much for honoring this invitation. We've been waiting to have you for a long time. I want to start off on a controversial note. And it is I'd like your response to a warning that has been issued recently that South Africa is in danger of becoming a mafia state because of major weaknesses in trying to prosecute financial crimes. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, obviously we've seen the warning coming from FATF, and we are responding to that by giving and empowering all the institutions that are supposed to help us deal with this, like the NPA, the Hawks, the financial FICA, and then the banks, obviously in the private sector, and everyone has a role to play. It's not only us as the state. So we are doing our best to help these institutions, and hopefully with the necessary skills, the necessary focus, they will be able to turn the corner.
Yeah. And you speak about FATF. People may not know what FATF is. This is the Financial Action Task Force. Just describe who they are.
Under the UNCTAD regime of the United Nations, which is responsible for measuring the role of countries, including issues of illicit financial outflows, money laundering, corruption, and all those matters in terms of how countries fare. So what they do from time to time, they measure the responses of various countries across the globe, and then they put them in a particular threshold of measurement.
Yeah. Now, on the back of the release of this report by FATF, one of Treasury's probably longest-serving officials was interviewed, Ishmael Momoniat, and he had these words to say that among the weaknesses that were observed by this organization, it identified that what was most glaring is that our law enforcement agencies, and I quote here, hardly ever ask authorities in other countries for information on such crimes as money laundering or the financing of terrorism. What are the reasons behind this, Minister?
Yeah, obviously the law enforcement authorities will ask information where they're investigating or where they have identified that there's someone who needs to be charged or someone has been charged, or there's a process towards charging that particular person, which is called the mutual legal assistance process. So we do, from time to time, receive requests, and we also from time to time send a request, which is done through what is called the Central Authority, the Department of Justice, which it is done through the Director General of the Department of Justice. So it obviously has to emanate from the investigations that the Hawks will have done and the FICA will have done, that then will then go through the processes of the NPA to then request that information. So obviously there could be systematic weaknesses in the process. It's not that there are no cases that may need that request. For example, the investigations take long. By the time your request is after a long period of time and so forth. So those are some of the challenges that these institutions are looking into and they are attending to.
And you use the words mutual legal assistance, and it immediately takes me back to when you held a press conference and it had to do with locating the Guptas. When did our agencies ask either the UAE or India for information on the Guptas?
Yeah, it has been ongoing for many years now. I just can't remember the exact year from which they started, but I can confirm that it has been many years where they have been sending information, which has also gone through the central authority, which is the Department of Justice, to the UAE, and obviously with regards to India. And it goes through DERCO, which is the responsible liaison authority for South Africa. So it has been, yes, many years.
And what's taking so long, Minister, to bring these people back to South Africa to stand in the courts and answer for the alleged crimes they committed?
Yeah, maybe firstly is to separate between the mutual legal assistance and extradition. Okay. So the first process was the one of mutual legal assistance, which we have been doing with the countries that I've mentioned. They have received some of the information that they needed, in particular from the UAE, but they said the information was not really satisfactory. And there has been ongoing exchanges of engagements between the two countries, but they then used what is called the second best evidence to then proceed with some of the charges that you will have seen in the Free State. I think it's regards to Estina, although they still need more information from these authorities. But that shows the commitment from these law agencies to do their job. Our role then becomes to facilitate that the countries where they've requested the information from does provide the information, and it is the information that they are looking for, which then the law authorities or enforcement, they then look at that information. They will tell us whether it's what they've requested or not, because we don't look into that information. By law, our role is just to facilitate that they do receive it and the request reaches the requested country.
Apart from the Estina dairy case, Minister, that, in my memory, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, is probably one case that involves Gupta associates and the monies that were taken from this country. What else is being done by our law enforcement agencies to recover the monies, at least for the time being, that were stolen from our country?
Yeah, no, there is a lot that has been done. As you will remember, there are also other companies, international multilaterals, that they've already paid back. It's because of the collaborative efforts that the law enforcement agencies had with for example, the U.S. justice system, in the British, Belgium. So there has been billions of rands. You are aware that have also been announced, even through the SIU and some with the NPA, the Mackenzies, and the other big multilaterals. Yes. So there is work that is being done, but at the end, it is still a small portion or fraction of the monies that must be recovered, and hence the ID is continuing to do the investigations and working with all the authorities that will help us across the globe.
Yeah. Let me be specific. I'm asking in relation to the Guptas and the monies that they personally would have amassed, yes, allegedly through illegal means. Is there any effort being done to recover those monies from them, whilst they still sit and the extradition processes are still ongoing?
Yes, and that is still now at the hands of the ID. You will remember that the president had to amend the regulations with regards to the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, where the regulations now allows for the investigative or law enforcement authorities to proceed with whatever information that they may have or that they may have acquired through the processes of the commission. And they are currently compiling lots of investigation, which we believe at some stage they will go through the process of requesting us to help them to locate some of the information in terms of the mutual legal assistance. And they are also in collaborative work with the various law enforcement agencies across the globe.
Minister, another case that we need to look into is that of Steinhoff. You will know that in December 2021 will mark 4 years since what was described as the country's biggest corporate fraud took place. There are executives of Steinhoff who are still probably living lavishly wherever they are. What's taking so long in putting those people behind bars?
Yeah, it's another case of obviously a complex matter that the investigators are grappling with from both the Hawks and the NPA, because as you will have known, it's a prosecutorial-led investigation given the complexity of the matter. And they have received various reports. What they have been working on from the briefings that they have provided is that they are working on converting the reports that they have into criminal charges, because the reports are speaking about the accounting misstatement, irregularities and so forth. So prosecutors and the investigators from the Hawks must be able to say this kind of a conduct constitute a criminal conduct in terms of the Criminal Procedure Act. So that is what they are working on, and the team has been assigned to help them to do that. People with expertise in the field of forensic, in the fields of Companies Act, and in the fields of corporate law, and some of those most sophisticated issues that relates to the financial statements and so forth. Yeah. And we have also impressed to the NPA and both the Hawks that it's an issue that is important for the country, that it must be resolved, because it involves also the money of workers in terms of pension funds, and also the confidence to South Africa to deal with the very complex kind of crimes. But you will have seen that already in Germany, some of them have been charged, and it's a process obviously where they also have to engage with them to find each other. So that is also an ongoing process, which we are hopeful that it will find finality soon.
And I'm glad you raised the German leg of this particular case, because they're moving with speed.
No.
You are saying that they already charged these people. On the 3rd of October, this was earlier this month, Minister, I had the head of the Hawks in studio here. Here's what he had to say about where this case is right now. Let's just have a listen.
The matter of Steinhoff, obviously we have already obtained more than 90% of what needed to be gathered in that matter. But the final decision as to whether we are ready to take anybody rests with the prosecutors that are part of this team. So they continuously guide the investigators.
So 90% of the work is done. I'm going to pause you there, Minister, for a moment, because I want to take a break. When we return, you'll pick up on the response. This is Newsfeed, the AM edition. You're watching Newsfeed AM. We are in conversation with the Justice Minister, Ronald Lamola, and we're talking cases that seemingly are taking too long to resolve, Minister. You've heard the head of the Hawks saying on the Steinhoff matter, 90% of the work is done. What's left now is for a decision from the NPA to say we're proceeding and we're actually going to put people in handcuffs. It's taking long.
Yeah. Before the break, Koli, you spoke about the German process, that they are moving with speed, and I was saying it's not true. There is no investigation in a criminal matter of this complexity that can move with speed. Even in Germany, it took them many years. If you look, it's about 4 or 3 years from the date of the commencement of the investigation to the date of charging. And I'm not justifying what could be happening between the Hawks and the NPA. I'm just saying these kind of investigations, sometimes, because of their nature and complexity, they could sometimes take time. But the reality is that the Hawks, what they've said, it's obviously the person who can really answer as to when and how they're going to take a decision is the NPA. But when they do receive the report, for example, an investigative report, the NPA, they will have to study the report Obviously, they were involved in the process. But
that's exactly the point, because
yes,
they are working jointly. They, in
yes,
fact, are advising the investigators who sit in the Hawks.
Yes, but remember, even if they are working jointly and advising, there still needs to be that line of kind of independence between the two, that the investigation must still be independent. As they bring the report, their role is to advise that, so that there is no line of blaring in their role. And also, when they do take the decision, they must also take it independently without being influenced by anyone, including the investigator. So obviously they have to study the report and also say whether there is a prosecutable case in this kind of an instance. So sometimes it does happen that they sit together. They will then say, look, we think you need to look at this and that information. Can we have this and that? So those are things that could sometimes delay the process of a decision being taken.
Yeah.
But there are instances where it may not be justifiable why there is a delay. If, for example, it's a straightforward, clear-cut case in a matter, but this is not as straightforward and clear-cut as any normal matter.
Let me bring your attention to probably one that is slightly clear-cut. You'll argue with me if you disagree. It's the curious case, and I call it curious because the Eastern Cape Premier, Oscar Mabuyane, as you will know, is fighting the Hawks, trying to stop them from investigating him. But nonetheless, he has been in the sights of the Hawks, who started investigating his dealings in May of 2019. And I was lucky enough to get the general, who confirmed that in March 2021, the work was, quote-unquote, complete and handed over to the NPA for, quote-unquote, a decision. What I'm trying to do here, Minister, is almost build a case to say to you, do you understand what is going on within the NPA and what seems to be taking long for them to come to a decision to charge?
Yeah, again, it's the same as the Steinhoff issue, which I've said that they are better placed to say, in this matter specifically, why are they not taking a decision within this period and that period? But from the briefings, obviously, that I also receive when members of the public complain about decisions of the NPA taking long, I also get it from them that some of the reasons why the matters will take long is that there may be further information that they want from the investigating officer, which they will then say, this is the information we need, this is what, that then delays the process of taking a decision, because it will also not be in the interest of justice to take a half-cooked docket to court. They also have to be sure that there is indeed a prima facie case.
Minister, there is what is called the Investigative Directorate. It sits within the NPA and it is led by Advocate Herman Cronje. Now, the reason I'm taking you back to the establishment of the ID, which was previously not there, I just want to take the viewers back on what the reasoning was for establishing such a unit within the NPA. And it is described as follows. This is its role, that it is to deal with serious, high-profile or complex corruption and any other cases referred to it by the National Director of Public Prosecutions in accordance with the NPA Act. Shamila Patoy can easily use the services of Herman Cronje, whose duty, it would seem, is to deal with complex matters. Why is Herman Cronje sitting there then if these matters are going on for years unresolved?
Yeah, you will know that also in that press release, what was categorically stated is that it must focus on the matters that emanate from the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. Because of their nature, they are huge matters, very complex and so forth. So that is what the ID is seized with. So the National Director, when she want to consider giving the ID more work, she will have to check in terms of the volume of work that the ID is currently having. And I can tell you that it might be too much ask if we say all complex matters that come to the fore, the ID must then move to they will not be able to handle the amount of work that they have that are emanating from the State Capture Commission of Inquiry.
Let me ask you a straightforward question.
Which is their direct mandate that from the president when he appointed them.
Yes.
He wants them to focus on those matters. And as you are aware, they are now waiting for the report from the chairperson of the commission.
Chief Justice. All right. Let me ask you this straightforward question, Minister. Do you believe Advocate Shamila Batoy, the head of the NPA, has a case to answer on non-performance, based on the cases, at least, that we've dealt with?
No. At this stage, there is none. Also, that you will remember that the decisions to prosecute, most of them happens at the provincial level by the provincial directors of public prosecution.
She is the head. She has the right to crack the whip.
Yes, I agree with that. But in all the provinces, these decisions have to be made. Like the one you're talking about of Mobiana, it must be made in the Eastern Cape. The decisions to prosecute with regards to the matters related to what the ID is dealing with must be made by the head of the ID and so forth. But it's true that she has to ensure that in terms of the performance measures of all the heads in the provinces, including in the regions, they are indeed able to do in terms of their performance, in terms of the provinces where they are responsible for. At this stage, you will remember that there has been capacity challenges, which we have helped the NPA to resolve with the Department of Public Service and Administration in terms of the resources that they needed and all that. And we believe that they are in a far better position to handle some of the matters that are coming before them.
Minister, let's move slightly away from financial crimes now and deal with matters of criminality. Tuesday, the 26th of October, this was this Tuesday, it marked exactly 7 years since the murder of Senzo Meyiwa, the former Bafana Bafana captain. That family, I do not want to imagine what they are going through. Just for starters, would you have a message for that family as to why their case remains unresolved?
Yeah, I think at this stage there is a matter that is before the courts where there is a decision that has been taken to prosecute a number of accused people. I think it will be fair to give that process a chance to see whether in terms of the evidence that is there, the prosecutor who has decided with the people that the SAPS has assigned to investigate on the matter, it does produce beyond reasonable doubt that indeed these are the accused people. So I think the message I could give to the family, I've seen some of their interviews with
And you're well aware of their concerns, therefore,
yes,
because you're helping me by bringing this up, because I don't have to ask you this question.
No, I have seen it. So I will obviously say, I think it will be advisable for the family to give the process a chance, because at the end, when a prosecutor decides on a matter and they account to the victims why they've made a decision and so forth, it must be backed by evidence in front of them why they've made that decision.
On this very case of Senzo Meyiwa, Minister, you will be aware that there is one of the accused who's already been convicted for 6 murders that took place in KwaZulu-Natal. The gentleman's name is Sifiso Guhlendule. And I'm bringing his case up deliberately because what was said by the prosecution team on the back of his conviction was that in the lead up to this conviction, because he had been granted bail as this case was ongoing, he went about eliminating witnesses that were willing to come forward and testify, presumably against him. And so those 6 people, among them, some of them are brothers of one single family that were taken out. Who takes responsibility for the courts letting out criminals who then do not respect their bail conditions and instead their major concern is to eliminate anyone who's going to make sure that they are convicted.
Yeah, obviously, the presiding officer who presided on the bail application had in front of him or her all the facts about that person, and then made a particular decision. And on his side, with the facts that the NPA is bringing, you can see that there could have been a lapse of judgment, because if a person is on 3 or 4 trials of murder, I mean, those are grounds for refusal of bail. Minister, on the facts. But the presiding officer could be best to explain why and so forth. But that is a process of, which is a different process.
Might you look into this case specifically, Minister, because families have lost loved ones as a result of the criminal justice system not protecting them, because that's at the core of your mandate as Minister of Justice, that you protect victims of crime and those who might be vulnerable groups to criminality.
Yes, also including access to justice.
Indeed.
Yes, that is it. And when there could be an area of misconduct, it's a process that is handled in an independent way by the Magistrate Commission or the Judicial Service Commission if it's a judge. And that is meant solely so that the minister does not willy-nilly. It's not easy for a minister to remove a magistrate or a judge. There must be a due process. So, and that is meant to guard the processes of the courts.
Might you be willing to lead your own process in this, look specifically into this matter, because 6 people being taken out by a criminal.
Yes, we will look into it.
Thank you, Minister. Let's take a break. When we return, we're going to talk about the Zuma parole matter. You're watching Newsfeed AM. We are talking to the Justice Minister about a myriad of issues, and the one I'm going to bring up now, Minister, is that of the parole decision around former President Jacob Zuma. In July, you stood outside the Escort prison and proclaimed that former President Jacob Zuma, regardless of his status, he is going to be treated like any other prisoner in Escort. Sitting here today, can you say with a clear conscience that Zuma was treated like any other prisoner there?
Yes, I can. And all processes that former President Zuma has undergone are processes that are followed in the Department of Correctional Services in terms of the Correctional Services Act.
He never received special treatment?
No. We treated him like any other prisoner, but obviously it's not. There could be situations where, for example, you have to ensure that his safety, his health condition and all those issues, you must from time to time check. And obviously the National Commissioner also had a responsibility to inform us about his situation, so that we are aware in case there's any question or in case there's any situation that may need
Who is with
us to be aware.
Besides yourself?
Obviously myself, obviously if there's any situation, and sometimes there could be a situation that I may need to inform the President.
Yes.
Yeah.
The decision to place him on medical parole was taken against the advice of the Medical Parole Board. Is the commissioner, the now former commissioner, was he allowed to do that by law?
Yeah, obviously, I can't make a pronunciation on the whether. Maybe what I can say is that in terms of the Correctional Services Act, the National Commissioner is empowered to place people on parole, normal parole, or on medical parole. And in that regard, he can also delegate that function to regional commissioners. As we are sitting here, decisions are being taken by heads of centers or regional commissioners or by the National Commissioner to place a number of people on parole. It's done on a day-to-day basis. Hence, I say it is a procedure that is prescribed by the Correctional Services Act. And I also take decisions on parole. Firstly, for lifers, those that have been sentenced to life imprisonment, I make the decisions to place them on parole on the recommendations of the National Parole Board, including the Medical Parole Board. I also take decisions with regards to lifers.
So, in simple language, Arthur Fraser was allowed to sidestep an observation or a decision by the Medical Parole Board that said former President Jacob Zuma did not deserve to go.
Yeah, that is your pronunciation, Ekul. In terms of the Act, it is the National Commissioner who makes a decision.
He also told the public broadcaster that the parole board, the Medical Parole Board, disagreed and said the former president was fit to sit in the escort facility.
Yeah, obviously, as I was saying, in terms of the Act, he takes decisions, or the National Commissioner or anyone delegated by him, take decisions with regards to anyone who is not a life sentence offender. And that decision obviously is informed by the facts in front of him, which includes the report of the Medical Parole Board. As to whether under these circumstances there was facts or information that warranted that he can sidestep the decisions of the Parole Board, it's something I cannot pronounce on because it's in front of the courts. But what I can say is that he did inform me when he took the decision that he has taken this decision, and I asked him whether does the law allow him to take what he says, and he confirmed that indeed by the law he is the one who is supposed to take the decision. And I also asked him whether in this regard has he followed the Correctional Services Act. He did confirm that he has followed the Correctional Services Act, but I cannot pronounce on whether the decision to not to go with the Parole Board's recommendations and so forth, because that is a matter that is sub judice. But I can confirm that he did inform me after he has made the decision that this is the decision he has taken, and I asked him the relevant questions.
Minister, are you willing to be transparent with the South African public and tell us what the parole conditions of the former president are?
Yeah, obviously, the parole conditions of the former South African president are also determined by the National Commissioner at the time when he makes the decision to release him on parole. Conditions are almost the same as of any other parolee, because I did ask what are the conditions, and he did tell me that they are the same of any other parolee, that he needs to report from time to time. He must not move from his place. If he does, he must get a permission from the Correctional Services official and so forth. So those are the kind of conditions that are in his parole conditions.
Minister,
the information that he gave me.
I'm completely out of time, but I need to ask you this question on the back of what is going on, particularly around our cricket team. How or what role could your department play in addressing issues of racism in the country?
Yeah, obviously there is a role that we can play, because we are obviously responsible to ensure that people adhere to equality and also fight against any form of racism, prejudice, and so forth. So we have also seen what has happened in the cricket South Africa, and I have also heard you when you were interviewing Mpo and the apology of Quinton de Kock. But it is clear that he does not also want to be clear that the reasons he did not participate is because of the directive, or him unwilling to take the stand in terms of the Black Lives Matter. We do have a responsibility as government to ensure that there is social cohesion, there is anti-racism in the country, because from time to time actions of racism do flare up. And I'm happy that there has also been people that have been convicted in the past for racist behavior, when you remember Penny Sparrow and others that have gone through the Equality Court. But I think the incidents are just out of line, some of them. We do not really need to have this reoccurrence on a day-to-day basis. There must be a point where South Africans, particularly white South Africans, appreciate that we can live, coexist, all of us fight against racism.
Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, I thank you very much for your time. Ronald Lamola is the Minister responsible for this department.